Hi, everyone. Welcome to this edition of Conversations with Nicole. My guest today, Richard Potts. He is the owner of Richard Potts Consulting and founder of the Meredith Project. Richard and his wife, Joellen, founded the Meredith Project to honor their daughter, who was murdered her senior year in college in Raleigh, North Carolina. A little bit about Richard. He says, quote, "My vision for the project is that it become a non-denominational speaking, teaching lay ministry where I combine my professional, corporate world, and management consulting experience and expertise with my Bible training and teaching experiences to help church leaders better understand and minister in our constant shifting culture." Richard, welcome to Conversations with Nicole.
Glad to be here. Great. Thank you.
You are so welcome. I'm delighted that I can share your story and your vision for the Meredith Project and what you're doing in the community and beyond as you have started this initiative. Let's just go ahead, give folks a little bit about your background with your consulting company, how you've worked with businesses across the country and world, and how you're using those skills and expertise to help in the faith-based community.
It's a little strange in how I got to where I'm at, Nicole. I began studying at NC State University in Raleigh. That was a second choice. I had planned to become a doctor and wanted to go to Duke. And in my senior year in high school, I decided I could not cut somebody. And it's pretty hard to be a surgeon if you can't cut someone. So I put all my eggs in one basket. I applied to NC State in the School of Engineering and began as a student in civil engineering. We were married at the beginning of my junior year, and because of financial and being married, I had to go to school part-time and work, and I worked for the Highway Commission in Raleigh, North Carolina. It was during that time that I decided that probably engineering was not my future. So I switched majors and switched to mathematics. And this was before computer science and so forth. But I got a lot of computer programming. And so I graduated then in mathematics. Well, my first job was a process engineer with at that time was the world's largest textile company. And about 2 years after joining them, I was recruited by the CEO of a cosmetic company moving out of New York City to a little place called Apex, North Carolina. And so I ended up going to work with them as an administrative assistant to the CEO, which meant I was his go-for. Whatever he said do, I did. But they had visions for me, and they treated me very, very good as to move me around in different things. And one of the first areas they put me in was to coordinate the implementation of their first computer system. They had outsourced everything. And shortly after doing that, I realized what they were telling me they wanted to do, the computer they had on order wouldn't do it. So he said, okay, then you tell me, you find me what needs to be done. Long story is that I ended up designing their entire computer system throughout the entire company: marketing, sales, R&D, manufacturing, financial, the whole 9 yards. Hired all their people, trained all the people, designed all the systems. Well, and then served as IT director till everything was up and running reasonably smooth. And then they said, okay, now that you did it, now make it all work in the real world. And so I became the operations manager. And I stayed
all of your expertise.
Right, because I had been involved in every facet of the business. Now, don't talk, make it work.
Right.
And so after a while, and this gets into a little bit down the road of where the Meredith thing comes in, is that there was a watershed moment in my life that I said, I need to walk away from all of this. And I was the young Turk on the corporate ladder, making more money and having more power than a 30-something should have.
So you walked away because you wanted to do more, and that led you to...
That's right. And so I walked away and started my own business.
So starting your own business is helping other people and their business now.
So I became a consultant. I like to call myself a management consultant, but most of the work had to do with process improvement, which almost always had something to do with IT.
Right.
And computers are going to come in somehow. So I had a computer staff and so forth. And so we did custom programming for companies.
And so how does that relate to moving into helping people in their churches?
Well, how that did is it just sort of moved on down the road. And I just got involved in lots of different things. Now, on the backside of that, during that same period of time, I was going to the prison, the youth prison in Cary, North Carolina. It was called the Pope Youth Prison. It's not there now. It was closed down a few years ago. And I began to get involved in these young men, mentoring to them, doing different things, Bible study, just mentoring, answering questions. And I began to understand how they thought. And so that went on away. And during that process, one of them accused me of only knowing, because he came from a different background than I did. And he said, well, Richard, you only know what your church teaches about my faith. And I said, okay, we'll solve that problem. So I then got in touch with leaders from his particular faith. Mm-hmm. And I told him, I said, I'm mentoring, I'm talking to these young men. I want to know what they believe, what you teach. And that started me to asking questions. So I have sat down and I've talked to people across the board. And it's a little bit like consulting. You go in, you find out what's going on, And so I wanted to find out what each person felt, believed, and taught. So that when I say something, I know I'm speaking from some expertise, not my expertise, but their own expertise. So I have met with people, leaders of almost all major religions. I met with, and within the Christian community, which I am one of, is I have met with pastors from almost every denomination. And so that just sort of, and then I get into the Bible study thing. And so I think you have in the sheet that I gave you, and this is all part of the thing that happened, is that my wife and I do teach Bible studies. And then we look at helping churches or the faith-based community focus on what really young people, and that's been our main ministry, but we now, as we get older, sort of branching out. So I don't know if I'm telling you what you wanted or
You're fine. I just want to get, help people understand how you use your business background for the faith.
It's all part of that consulting, because what do you do when you go in? You got to, one, identify the problem.
Right.
Most people are not going to call me if they don't think they've got a problem. Many times they don't know what that problem is. So how that works is being used to going in, and I did not specialize, have not specialized in any particular segment.
Right.
I'm a generalist. Mm-hmm. And so I feel comfortable talking at any level. I also found that when I go into a company, whether it's the owner of the company or the president, if it's not privately owned, all the way down to the guys in the maintenance department. I found out that, guess what? A lot of times the people in the maintenance department knew more about what was going on than the people in the office on the 11th floor.
That's true.
So being able to communicate, and I'm a country boy. I just talk English. I mean, plain English, Southern English. I don't articulate very well. So that's that.
Well, let's talk a little bit about so that's what you're doing now. You're using your business background to help the faith-based community. But a couple of years ago, you felt the need to start the Meredith Project. And Meredith was the name of your daughter who was murdered her senior year in college in Raleigh, North Carolina. So tell me how that came, how this all came about.
Okay. As I thought about it, we have always enjoyed young people. Obviously, that grew exponentially after her death, okay, because she was in her late teens as she graduated. So then thinking about it and what did I want to do, and based on all of this of trying to find out what people think, how they think, what do they think's wrong, and so forth, it just sort of all came together. And I decided that I wanted to honor her memory. So it's in memory and in honor of her And so that's how the Meredith Project came about, and to use that, because in many cases, much of the watershed moments I had in her life is applicable to a family. So if I'm going out and helping a church and they want to, or a faith community, not necessarily a church, but a faith community, and they have issues. Well, let's take an example. The opioid situation, that up until the COVID thing was the #1 issue in the country, and so I listened to that, and so, okay, do you understand what the basic problem is? What's trigger? Yeah, there are certain things that trigger that, but focus on the core thing. What's the core issue? And that's where my consulting comes in.
Right.
So many times people think, no, they got a problem, they don't know what it is, and then they'll go off on these tangents trying to solve it, and they don't solve it because they're not focused on the core. So all of that's part of it. And so I use the Meredith thing as a motivator for me, because I wanted to honor her. She had planned to come to work in the company when she graduated, because she had worked with me a couple of summers. She had actually been on site with me with some of the clients. They loved her. She was fabulous at it. And so all of it just sort of all comes together, and I'm not sure I'm explaining it very well.
Well, I think it's I'm sure that she is thankful that that her death was not in vain, and that you can bring good from something that was very tragic. I can't imagine what it was like to lose a child. I'm sure that has been difficult for you and your wife, and you have another daughter. And so how do you work through all of those emotions to get to the point where you can start, an organization in her name?
And that's probably a difficult answer, Nicole. Not sure I have a good answer for you. And I'm going to have to get a little churchy on you here, is that when my mind begins to go in that dark direction, okay, is my prayer has always been, and God's been very good to answer that prayer, is to take me somewhere else. And so don't let me dwell on it. And we learn very early, and this is something that we often do as a team. We know that when you're through a tragedy, whether it's death, sickness, loss of a job, and all pain is the same. So that's another reason I reluctantly talk too much about our situation, because sometimes somebody might say, well, gee, I got a financial problem, or I got and they start comparing grief or pain, and you can't do that. So that's one, but so anyway, how you get through it is you can either choose, it's a choice. You can choose to either get better or get bitter.
Right.
That's a choice. So that's one of the things that we always tell young couples. Well, so if something happens to you, or you got a problem, you got a choice to make. You can choose to learn and grow and go through it, or you can become a bitter old person. And our desire is not to become a bitter old person. And so that's how I get through it. I mean, and to be honest, and again, I'm going to get churchy on you, it's an act of God. That I can put one foot in front of the other is a miracle. So when I talk to people and they say, well, I don't believe in miracles, I said, well, you have to. You can't say that again. Or that you say, I've never seen. If you've seen Richard Potts, you see a walking miracle. So that's how I get through it.
I appreciate you sharing, the personal side of what it's like to lose a child, and how you are trying to take a tragedy and turn it into good, and to help other people who are going through various circumstances, whatever the case may be. I want to thank you for being a part of Conversations with Nicole today. I will be making available information on how to reach you with the Meredith Project and with your consulting company, so that folks have questions and they want to talk to you personally, maybe invite you to come into their business or their church or their organization, they can reach you. Thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you so much, Nicole.